At its core, I think that teaching is a lot like map making. You pick a destination and you figure out the best route to get there. It sounds simple, but once students are involved, things get messy in practice. Goals are constantly shifting, distractions happen day by day, and for me at least, very quickly I can forget the big picture. In classrooms at least, these goals are socially sanctioned. Our parents and friends and family all agree that it's probably a pretty good terrain to cross in terms of going through formal education. So even if it is difficult, it rarely feels strange or meaningless. But I think in our own lives, the maps get a lot scarier. There's no institution or classroom to hold us accountable, no certainty at the end of the semester, and no grading to measure fulfillment or progress in someone's life. It's a weird flip once you graduate. The stakes get way higher, but the navigators and guardrails just totally disappear. If you're new here, welcome back to Lesson Planning Life. My name's Thomas. I'm a teacher and coffee enthusiast, and I'm taking a lot of the thoughts I have in my own teaching practice and applying them to my own life as well. This week, I've been thinking a lot about the idea of decision-making and teachers' role in scaffolding, direction to go, and what choices to make along the journey of learning, and how much more confident I am as a teacher making those decisions for my students than I am for myself. And since my first teaching gig almost 10 years ago, I've been really into this idea of backwards design, which sounds pretty simple. You design your classes based with the end goal in mind and then working backwards instead of just trekking through a textbook or working through a curriculum day by day by day. But for me, at least, that was a huge revelation to see a teacher planning a course from the end backwards. At least at that age, I'd always understood schooling as something that you go to each day to check the next box. Maybe it was because I was younger, maybe it was for a bunch of other reasons, but I never really considered the larger scope of why I was doing the things I was doing, who was making the decisions, and which directions I was actually headed toward. Since then, I've been obsessed with understanding the meta of learning, of teaching, and more recently applying that to my own life. As a result, I've spent a ton of time in the planning stage with my own goals over the last few years, trying to set targets and optimize for work and relationships and health and happiness. And I've noticed how often I quickly shed old maps or burn them or shove them in drawers as soon as something new comes along or new experiences inspire a different direction. And that's really awesome. It's really cool to see that part of adulthood, how much bigger it is than I thought it would be. But it also is what I miss most about being a student. And I think what comforts me the most as a teacher. In school, the routes that you set hardly ever waver. It doesn't matter if you necessarily enjoy them or are very good at them. Regardless of how difficult the class may be, you know that there's a finish line and there's a level of certainty and comfort that comes with that. That certainty thing has been a key for me more recently, so much so I brought it up to my sophomores. But I think it's very, very hard in our own lives with our own goals that we're setting to follow through with things when there is so much less certainty promised. We don't necessarily know where we'll be ending up or all of the steps to get there. So at least for me, it's really easy to chase different programs or philosophies or coaches in hope that maybe that's more certain than the ones that I'm on that I don't quite know where they'll end up. But now that I've finished the first full week of school, I'm reminding myself that a great map or a great plan alone is not the only ingredient in reaching the places you want to get. You have to stick the course out. And as a student, I realized this. I was always saying yes to everything. I was in way too many clubs, way too many things. And that was a huge strength. I learned a lot of different things and learned a bunch of different skills, but I never really dug as deep as I would have liked into those things. And already seeing some of my students juggling all the different things they're doing has reminded me again that I've made some decisions about where I want to go, and I've got to stick to those for a little bit. It's not a bad thing to ignore some of the other really great opportunities and other interesting skills that I could tap into. But for now, I really have to focus on the steps that I've already drawn out. And for someone who loves that planning stage, that can be a hard thing to do. I'm sure that'll come up in my classroom more and more throughout the year. But more importantly, I'm really trying to hold myself accountable to those same standards. So there'll be a new video next week, and you can check out the essay that inspired this in my Substack below. Thanks.